Now, I can also tell when there is shifts going on for myself. And I find that what we do as human beings oftentimes is just kind of tell the story best as we can. That is to say that your conscious attention cannot grasp everything that is going on at all times. Not even close, right? It's pretty fucking limited, your conscious attention. So the parts that it can grasp are the parts that it makes to be real. Sometimes it so happens that the larger parts are more easily graspable. That is to say that if there is, for example, a very big reason for something, and it is glaring and it is obvious, most people will be able to see, yeah, that's the reason. But no situation is as simple as a reason. Every situation is woven into every other situation throughout infinity. That's the way that things are. Is they're tightly knit. So where you see, or where many people or most people will see action reaction, I see it more as action and reaction being the same process, really. And so for this reason, all of these processes are wildly complex, and you could track them back into all sorts of complexity in their origin and their history and all the things that they interact with ever, right? So again, consciously, we are usually thinking, okay, like whatever we can grasp as the biggest reason must be the reason for this or that. I like to look at reasons. I am a very analytical person. But where I am analytical and I like dissecting, the goal of my dissecting most often is the opposite of analysis. It's synthesis. It's to see how these seemingly disparate parts work as a whole. That is, yeah, because that's just my my calling, I suppose. That's just the way I am. So all of this is to the point that I feel like I am right now in a time of shift on the personal front. My energies are low, and as a result of my energies being low, there is a certain drive that is making me do things, and I'm watching myself do these things, and I can paint the story as best as I perceive it. So, for instance, StarCraft seems to be dipping pretty hard in my perception. Now, this is something that I could have anticipated, and maybe in your reality it was more difficult to anticipate, for example, because I was a consultant with the StarCraft team. So as change happened internally that I knew would be reflected in the game externally as a result down the line, the process is, it's like looking at time from a different angle, essentially. So the process is yet to unravel in the eyes of say the community. So for example, if Tim Morton was leaving, I would have known that Tim Morton was leaving in advance. So when Tim Morton leaves, I've already had that shock happen to where I know he's wrapping up. His job is done, right? And the rest of the time is probably wrapping up. Whereas people only start counting and analyzing the situation once they get the information that Tim Morton has left the team. Then they go, oh shit, what does this mean? I've been thinking about what that means since before, right? So again, if you're closer to the heart of something, then you can foresee more easily what's gonna happen, right? It's your point of view, and so I was pretty scared for a while for the game, as I learned that the team was, for example, shrinking, right? Then I saw some very good solutions, like offloading esports to ESL, which I thought was brilliant. And now with the good news of ESL merging with DreamHack, I think that's great news. Like, I think that's really good because they can actually work on a product that is more grassroots. They understand the audience, etc. Like, I think ESL and DreamHack are much better at running tournaments than Blizzard ever was or ever could be. So I think there are things going on that actually calmed me down, where I was like, shit, like, this looks like it's gonna be really shit. Like, we gotta do something about this. And then things happen, and I was like, hey, that's not too bad. That's a good compromise, a decent solution, right? But obviously, in terms of what the team can produce internally, it's diminished. There was a big patch, right? Really cool stuff with the map editor and stuff like that. But as far as multiplayer is concerned, which is where I'm plugged to, right, and where all of the ecosystem of players that are dependent upon like income from the game, or any players that would come into the game to look for those things, like there's doors open. So I don't want to sound like the team remaining has done a shitty job. They've done a great job for the game overall, but the game overall has multiple facets, and the facet that I care about really, and to which I belong, is the competitive one, right? The game, the competitive game that is StarCraft 2. It's beautiful. It's great. It's also kind of a douchey game, and it's an isolating game. And these are part of the reasons why I think the game is suffering right now, is because we are in times of isolation. So like, people are playing actually social games like Among Us. Someone brought up in the chat earlier. You see, because that makes sense, because people are isolated. There's a pandemic. So games that are isolating by nature are even more isolating. Well, that compounds the issue. So if you were feeling shitty about being alone, then you probably don't go and like get excited about playing StarCraft right now, more so than before or later, perhaps. You see, now there are solutions to things like this. But again, there are also reasons that seem more apparent than others. So I'm giving you my incomplete conscious analysis of the situation here, because it's usually pretty good. So that's kind of where I find myself, is thinking about basically what's wrong with StarCraft 2, like also with like, what is the universe made of, and all kinds of cooler questions. But as far as my more grounded thoughts are concerned, as far as my ego is concerned, as far as like cats is concerned, as far as like my ecosystem in the StarCraft, or my place in the ecosystem of StarCraft is concerned, right? Like the node of my existence, as far as that's concerned, StarCraft is a great bulk of what my mind brings about. Now, I don't necessarily call them worries, because I don't much worry, if that makes sense. I am a very worrisome individual, or a worry-less individual. The opposite of worrisome. So when these thoughts come about to my mind, I know that that I am going to do something about it, or that it is highly likely that I do something about it, or that there will be enough thoughts that keep compounding and keep making the situation so that it becomes untenable not to do something about it. So you can be very zen and just take action when you know it's going to happen anyway, or you can kind of just sit there and wait. But and I'm not sure what I'm doing. I guess I do a mix. But I do have solutions, right? Because whenever my mind proposes problems, I imagine that there is a solution. So again, I don't worry. I don't get anxious. I don't think, oh shit, am I gonna have enough money? Like, I look at my bank account going down like every month, and my thought is like, I wonder how that's gonna recover. That's gonna be fun. Like, really? Like, I don't actually worry, but I'm 34 years old. This works for me. You see? I know my body is gonna do something. I know my existence is gonna do something to get out of the dilemma, or the problem as it foresees it. and it usually does. So right now I'm planning a tournament that would be really cool. For example, not a tournament, but because okay, I got budget before from Twitch, right? To run a tournament, and the tournament gets shit for viewers. Now, I don't feel offended. I know that people like my casting, for example. Like, I get tons of good feedback whenever I'm featured on the ESL stream. I don't feel like I could be doing too much more to promote the events. So I don't feel like, like it's by shortage of... I think what it is the irregularity of the events primarily. And also the isolating aspect of StarCraft 2, like I was describing it, is a problem. Like also it doesn't help that there are so many new players to older viewers, for example, who will not be connected to those players in ways where they would have been connected to them many years ago, right? Like say in 2010, 12, 13, 14, 15, it was brought about to my attention that it is many people's perception that in those times they felt far more connected to the people that they were watching, because people actively streamed and interacted not just with their audience but with each other in a way where you could see genuinely what their character looked like, etc. And there's very little of that, and players are not very good streamers these days because that's how they got good. So there's very few, right? Like there's like Harstem, like doing good streaming and like YouTubing. There's Lambo, there's Mcanning, but he doesn't usually compete. But when he does, it's hype, you see? That's just the thing. Like when Mcanning does good, because he's such a likable personality and the unlikelihood that he does well as a full-time streamer is high, and he has a lot of gimmicks, a very emotional person, a very... that seems very honest and genuine at the same time, right? Like playful. So it's really good when he does well. And if that was the case for most players, if you knew most players to the point or to the extent that you know Mcanning, then it would be much more interesting to watch. So I think a lot of people watch, for example, right now for the casters instead, because they feel like a lot of the casters do stream constantly and like they are a presence that is relatable, right? So in isolated times, that's what people would strive towards. So anyway, I had this idea that instead of giving me budget for a tournament, if they could give me like a budget for an off season. And then what I want to do is, because DreamHack works at different intervals of time, like there's intervals between DreamHacks basically, right? Like there's like one entire month of StarCraft where all the streamers basically die because, and I love DreamHack and ESL, like you guys are wonderful. But this is what you're doing also, right? It's like the entire thing is so suffocating for streamers right now during the DreamHack season that after the DreamHack season, like the streamers have to, start from nothing, basically. Like there's so little room and time to stream, but they also can't complain because, StarCraft is good. Like how do you, DreamHack is doing a good job at giving us more StarCraft. Like from the perspective of DreamHack, if it wasn't suffocating the rest of the ecosystem, it's amazing. I'm amazed at what they're doing, and I think it has potential to grow. And again, the product is great, etc., etc. Like there's nothing wrong with it, but there's things that they could be doing, like hosting streamers after a broadcast, for example, that I think would greatly enhance the ecosystem and down the line favor them, because you will have a more lively, more alive game where people are more familiar with the players that then end up playing or end up playing in the DreamHack circuits. Or even against, when they get matched up against players that end up playing in the DreamHack circuits. Like that's how people get more familiar and they start caring more about the tournaments, etc. You gotta be sold on it. So a lot of the problem with StarCraft right now is that the ecosystems that we had before don't so much exist anymore. Now a lot of that is tied to all sorts of motivations. Like for example, again, like this is always going to be an incomplete picture, but there is less to learn in a game that is 10 years old than in a game that is 0 years old, assuming that you learned anything ever, right? There is less to discover, there is less to make sense of down the line. So the older the game gets, the less there is reason for, say, discussion in terms like basically philosophical, political discussion in terms of like what's what beats what, or like when it gets kind of mathy and nerdy, and that's cool. But there's no need for that. Everyone already knows. You just go to Lambo's stream and you ask him. He'll know. Because the game's been out for 10 years. You don't have to think about it anymore. You just know it. You see? So that is difficult, for example, to replicate without help of Blizzard mixing things up. Now, that's another button that I push personally, constantly. I let Blizzard know, hey, this is what I think. This is what I think you need to do. And if you don't do this, then the game will stagnate, and stagnation is death. That's what stagnation is. Any energy, any life energy in the world that stops moving, if you stop stirring the pot, it stagnates. That's dead. You see? So you always want to keep stirring the pot one way or another. Now this is not the only way to stir the pot, but it would be of great help if Blizzard was willing to stir the pot on their end. That is to say, if they were more willing to do more balanced patches. I love the Void Ray shit, for example, right now. It's great. Like, maybe people are like, oh, not the Void Ray. But I mean the change in general. It's good. It's big enough that it stirred the pot. The new maps are cool. So things are being done. But if things stop being done, or if we don't start taking greater risks, perhaps even, because those are all kind of, yeah, like it might change the matchup a little bit, and it's kind of cute, but there's room for more, or at least frequency. This is a hot topic. People will disagree on me or with me in terms of what they are comfortable with, because everyone thinks that they are comfortable when there is certainty. But you're an idiot, because you will feel comfortable, right? Like if you know what's gonna happen, if you can predict what's gonna happen, but that is also fucking boring. You think about what's exciting, it's always in the future, because it's what hasn't happened. You think about the past, those are all the things that have happened. You already know the outcome. So what's the fun? So people gravitate towards organizing and towards controlling, but there is an element that's replenishing in chaos, because once you figure something out, it's figured out. So again, that's a very, I know that people will disagree instinctively on whether they think the game should be changed or not. And there is arguments to be made for mastery, which is what David Kim called it. And that is a striving towards perfection. And there is a beauty and awe to be found in perfection. There's no doubt. But if you want things to remain exciting, which is, I would argue, sports and esports thrives off of excitement, then you need to stir the pot. There's no way around it. I mean, I guess you could maybe super try to hype a game of chess, but pretty hard, right? And it's not even like the moves are already predetermined or anything. It's just more like it than not, right? Like, there's no fog of war, there's no RNG, there's no excitement, there's nothing being mixed. There's people know the name to half of the moves and starter moves. So again, might be fun to watch, and it might be awesome to watch in the literal sense. That is to say, whoa, perfection. Perfection is beautiful. And you can highlight beauty in perfection, of course. But it won't be exciting. I personally think exciting is a better driver in general when it comes to esports and appealing to an audience. So now, so there's what Blizzard could do. There's what I think DreamHack could do. Now there's what I feel like I can do. And so I proposed to Twitch that we make a tournament that runs in the off season. It hasn't been answered yet, but I imagine it was a good proposal. And what I would like to do is like involve, key people from my team, like Nura and Vive, who are also streamers, and I haven't reached out to them yet, but like involve them and make it a regular thing. I would also like to reach out to some of the more prominent casters, just to like kind of I think if it's like a star-bangled lineup and it's something that you can announce and get people excited about because there's going to be synergies, people that they know, etc., are running the channel, and then we say get a budget to run a few smaller events or medium events with say $1,000 prize pools or something like that throughout a month, right? And then you have different casting duos maybe in charge of different events where you can follow the stories kind of individually, and I do graphics, so I can do all of that. And then that place can be kind of a hub of sorts, is what I was thinking down the line. Say if there was this regular season thing to DreamHack, there's a space for the interval in the off season to kind of take off in its own regard, and I feel like something like that could work, and I feel like something like that could help revitalize things a little bit, the environment, make it a little bit more dynamic, and provide the players a little bit more security. Because that's the other thing, is the players. A lot of the players are not playing right now, and that's bad. Now you might think, oh, it's doom, Cats is so doom and gloomy, but I'm just presenting the facts, right? That you can research, and everyone gets the feels. Everyone gets the feels because they are aware of some parts of the facts, but they can't consciously organize them in a way where they can formulate a conscious, strong opinion on the matter, right? But you get the feels. So I think on the player side, a lot of players are not playing right now. Grandmaster is something like the lowest it's ever been. At the end of the season, it was 5150, I think, at the low end of Grandmaster, or 5100 basically, which is super low. And at the start of the season, I went to like 4700. So people that are not Grandmaster level, if everyone that was playing last season was still playing, our Grandmaster level by a large margin too. It's like 4700 is really low. Like they used to be Masters 2 or something. And it's not that I really care to be like, hey, you're not really Grandmaster. Like, I don't give a fuck, but that goes to show that the population is decreasing, and when the population decreases, the bar decreases, which is why you have shittier people now making it to Grandmaster, right? I got Grandmaster after dropping 300 MMR or 400 MMR, like I reached my Grandmaster goal at the end of the season, right? And then I started smoking mad weed and just not caring about control and StarCraft in the play sense, like to get better. And I dropped like 400 MMR, and then the season opened again, and with 400 less MMR, I still made Grandmaster. Just mind-blowing. So that's bad. Now the players, it's important that they have a reason to play. So I think that if we can create an ecosystem, not just that creates and gives them opportunity to profit, but it also gives them the opportunity to kind of display themselves and be known, and offers them resonance, essentially. Everyone needs resonance. Everyone needs the environment reflecting back at them in a way that's sensible. If your environment is saying, no, that's not the way, then it's probably not the way. And if your environment's saying, yeah, go, you can do it, then that's probably the way, you see? So it's important that these systems are in play. The Pylon Show is one of those systems that we didn't have before, that we have now, and that is really important. This is the reason why there's so much shit host, for example, as far as like tournaments are concerned, like smaller tournaments popping up. Like the grassroots scene is somewhat thriving, I think, and it's with the help of the Pylon Show, which offers them just enough exposure to push them over the edge to do something, so it's pretty cool. As boring as that segment is to watch for me, it's great because it enables all of the tournament organizers to do what they do to a certain degree, the smallest ones especially. Now, there is the community as well. And the community is kind of suck. I'm gonna be honest here. That is to say, there is enough not StarCraft, seemingly playing StarCraft. Maybe like a lot of it is co-op now too. But there's like not much of an echo for esports stuff at all, or for personalities, or for supporting any of that. And even though there is people in every Twitch chat and every stream, those people are not vocal. They're not, you know, I think all it needs is, like, for example, I'll bring it up again. I recently beat Mana in a tournament. That was like a 1400 MMR gap. Right now it would be like an 1800 MMR gap, which is pretty fucking mind-blowing. I'm a caster, retired, and that's a pretty cool accomplishment. And there was basically no resonance for me. There was no one going, like there was one chat of players that took note of it. And they were like, oh, that's pretty cool. And two people were like, oh, that's cool. And I was like, yeah. You know? But I beat Mana and I didn't hear any echoes. Like, that's pretty fucking crazy to me. Like, back in my day, back in the day of when I was a player, and if something like radical happened, I think, or crazy happened, or something that just outright shouldn't happen, they would be a threat with so many fucking upvotes, right? And interest. So yeah, it's kind of disappointing, and it's very difficult to go on to do things without resonance. Now I look at my YouTube channel too, so maybe you know, because people are always like, for example, someone in the chat just linked the ranked for the win stats and population as it was last seen rising. I'm gonna click on it. Let's see, and it says 2020, and it says it's rising. I'm not sure what this is, and if I guess this is ladder population. I'm not sure who takes this stats. This is not what it feels like for me, certainly, because this always gets linked. Like, it, according to this, it looks almost as though as if it is updated. Let's see, 10/9/2020. I mean, I see a dip actually. From, yeah, so there is actually definitely a dip between June and now, with a small spike that lasted very little at the very start of the season. It looks like for one day. So like for one day there was a small spike but it didn't even reach what it was 6 months ago. Yeah. Or no, this is 4 months ago even. 4 months ago. Let's see, games this season. Games per day. 98,000. And right now we are at 82,000. That's a dip, big dip. Yeah, so again, people are always linking stuff like this, right? Like, and it's cool. Like, there was a free-to-play announcement that gave us a large spike, and since the numbers remained stable for a little bit, and then there was a little bit of a peak. So we peaked in June, mid-June of this year, whatever that was. I'm not sure what happened mid-June. On the 17th, you can probably look it up, but there was an event on the 17th in which we peaked. Interest peaked for StarCraft multiplayer. It must have been some tournament finals or something. I don't know. And then since, we've been in a steady decline. Now, if I go to my YouTube, for example, I uploaded Protoss to GM, which is like me playing a game on the ladder. And it gets as many views as competitive StarCraft when I upload Kelasur versus Raynor best of 9, or Hearthstone versus Raynor, or even just Clem versus Raynor has only double the views of that, even though it's one of the hotter matchups that you could get. Neep versus Goblin is stuck at 99 views from 3 days ago, whereas a talk like this, where I'm just saying my thoughts on stuff, like, and it was somewhat motivational. I guess I was just saying, do what you enjoy doing, completely StarCraft unrelated, right? Do what you enjoy doing is the title of that video, and that video has 246 views, which is more than all of the StarCraft content that it's surrounded by, even though it's like one of very few videos of that kind that I've posted. I'm not known for that. This is not something that I do and post on YouTube usually. Maybe it should be, you see, because resonance wise, as far as my environment's concerned, I am getting more echoes for this type of content than I am for StarCraft content. So, you know, it's very difficult to ignore all of these factors and be like, yeah, the game's doing great and competitive StarCraft is doing great. No, I think that a lot of things need to be done in order for the game to be doing good. I think that the feel that you get that the game is in a decline is not unsubstantiated. I think that everyone sees it. And I think that it's not even a StarCraft specific or unique problem. I think competitive games are taking a little bit of a hit in general. Like the feel is also prevalent in Dota, and again, more social games are also thriving. So how do you make StarCraft thrive or grow in an environment like this? Is you create social elements, first and foremost, to be appealing to people who want to be a part of a community. So I'm going to start working on that on my own, but it would help if people also did that on their own accord. How do you do that? You make noise, you post things that interest you. If you see someone do something fun or a clip of it or anything like that, then you share it on Reddit or on Twitter. You do tweets and retweets and likes, and you tell your friends, etc., etc. Now, the cool thing about the StarCraft audience is that it's an older, mature audience for the most part, which means you have liquidity, you have money, and in that, it's the game kind of finds a sort of stability in its in a very unique sense, right? Where I don't think the game is going anywhere, and the game is amazing. It's it's my favorite game, at least traditionally. It's not always or every day my favorite game to play. That varies from day to day. But historically, it's my game. Been playing it for 20 years for a reason, right? And I think that there's a lot to learn from it and a lot to teach. And it's really fun to talk about and really fun to dissect and really fun to look at ultimately. So, yeah, I guess do your part somehow.